jobs and boosts growth across our nations. And third, the investment in our future technologies helps drive innovation and will help develop new warfighting capabilities. Here in the UK, to date, nearly £10 billion of investment has been allocated to UK nuclear infrastructure and nuclear industry since the Aukus partnership was established. And more recently, as a new government, we've confirmed radical trade reforms to break down barriers to trade and to technology sharing exclusively between our three nations, worth nearly £500 million a year in the cost of red tape we're able to remove. And in today's trilateral meeting between the three nations, we also agreed to add lethal UK-made Stingray torpedoes to the P-8 submarine hunting aircraft across all three nations, helping to counter the deep diving and conventional submarines. Of course, then continuing the same commitment to sharing skills and intelligence, which goes back those 60 years to the original nuclear engineers. The UK has today agreed to train hundreds more Australian to operate, maintain and regulate modern nuclear-powered submarines after the first course of 250 Australians was completed this month. And as part of that work, I can announce that Deputy Prime Minister Miles and I have agreed that negotiations will soon be underway for a new bilateral treaty to bind our Aukus collaboration into law. So this not only reflects our commitment to secure a secure Indo-Pacific region where international rules are respected, it also sends a very strong message that our defence alliance is one that will endure for many decades to come. So I and our new UK government will work to maximise the benefits of Aukus to our three nations, advancing technologies, developing military capabilities, securing economic gains and growing good jobs. But above all, we will work to maximise the potential for this ever closer alliance to contribute to wider global security and stability. Finally, of course, we have held these discussions under a cloud of growing global insecurity. So in our trilateral and our bilateral meetings, we've reinforced the need to stand together against Russian aggression, towards peace in the Middle East, and steadfast behind Ukraine for as long as it takes. In serious times, you need serious partners. So Richard, we in the UK stand shoulder with you, and with you, we will drive the Aukus partnership from strength to strength. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Lloyd. It is an honour to be here at this, the third Aukus Defence Ministers meeting. As John just said, we meet at a time of significant moment around the world, where the rules-based order is under pressure, under threat. And our three countries share strategic alignment, we share values, we stand in support of the maintenance of the rules-based order, be that in Eastern Europe, be that in the Indo-Pacific. And we are very grateful to have old, close, reliable partners such as the United Kingdom and the United States. Today's meeting has occurred just after the third anniversary of the announcement have seen at the end of last year and the beginning of this legislative and regulatory changes take place across the US, the UK and Australia, which have created a licence-free, seamless defence industrial base between our three countries. Right there is one of the biggest reforms to defence trade in our three countries that we have seen in decades. It will have a profound impact on the way in which we operate together. And as John has said, there is an economic dimension to this, which will greatly enhance defence industry across our three countries, building jobs, skills and capability in the US, the UK and Australia. The agreements that we reached in March of last year were legally underpinned by a treaty that was signed by our three countries in August of this year. And emanating from that, as John has just said, today we are announcing that negotiations will commence between Australia and the United Kingdom for our own bilateral treaty in respect of those elements of Aukus which relate to the relationship between the UK and Australia, and that particularly pertains to the development of the SSN Aukus type submarine in the future. And we're really excited about the prospect of undertaking those negotiations. Today we've also talked though about the challenges that we face. The challenges in respect of the human dimension, making sure that we are training enough submariners to operate these submarines in the future. And we have Australian submariners at the Nuclear Power School in the United States being trained here in the United Kingdom, operating on Astute-class submarines, operating on Virginia-class submarines. We have Australian defence industry workers from ASC who are right now gaining skills, working in Pearl Harbor, and the numbers in each of those areas stand to increase. Australia is funding 4,000 additional university places across our university system in Aukus disciplines to make sure that we are building the skills that are needed to deliver this project. In respect of Aukus Pillar 2, we've also seen really significant developments. When we met in California last year, we said that our three innovation systems would put out an innovation challenge in relation to electronic warfare, and today we are announcing the winners of that challenge, which in respect of Australia are Nova Technologies in South Australia, Penton, a company in the ACT, Advanced Design Technology, another company in the ACT, and we certainly congratulate each of those companies on their success in this innovation challenge. We've also worked on developing classified advanced algorithms for the use of AI in terms of processing the vast amounts of data which are picked up by our sonar buoys, which collectively will greatly enhance our decision-making advantage in the undersea domain. And again, right there is work which we are doing now, which is happening now, which is increasing our military capabilities, which is putting advantage into the warfighters' hands. All of this is a demonstration that AUKUS is happening, and it is happening at a pace. And today our conversations have been frank. This is the third occasion on which I have been at a Defence Ministers' meeting of AUKUS with Lloyd. It's the first with John, and it is great to have John as part of this team, and there is very much a sense of team as we meet to discuss this project going forward. I think it's fair to say that the personal rapport and friendship which exists amongst the three of us up here is emblematic of the closeness of the relationship between our three nations, which is now being embodied each and every day in a much deeper way through AUKUS.
Thanks, John. Let me start by thanking Deputy Prime Minister Marles and Secretary of State Healy. Richard, it's great to see you both. Despite the sharp escalation in recent days, a diplomatic solution is still viable. A diplomatic solution, not a military solution, is the only way to ensure that displaced civilians on both sides of the border can finally go back home. So I echo the call of President Biden, President Macron, and other leaders yesterday for an immediate 21-day ceasefire. That will provide time for the diplomacy needed to achieve a durable arrangement that will allow Israeli and Lebanese civilians to return safely to their homes. This time can also be used to conclude and implement a deal to secure a ceasefire in Gaza and to bring all of the hostages home. All parties should seize this opportunity. It can bring much-needed calm to Israelis, Lebanese, and Palestinians whose lives have been turned upside down since the Hamas assault on October 7th. And make no mistake, the United States remains postured to protect our forces and our personnel across the Middle East. And no one should try to exploit this crisis or expand this conflict. So we will continue to work tirelessly to avoid another tragic war and to find a diplomatic path forward. And with that, let me turn back to today's Aukus agenda. Together we have reaffirmed the extraordinary strength of our Aukus partnership, and we show our shared vision for an open, free, secure, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. Our three proud democracies share a deep and binding belief in the rules-based international order, in a system that respects human rights, upholds the rule of law, and insists that disputes be resolved peacefully. We also understand that we are stronger together. And that's the lens that we all used again today. Together we reaffirm that Aukus offers a unique opportunity for our three countries to enhance our military capabilities, to deepen our interoperability, and to strengthen deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. Today we reviewed our progress on Pillar 1 toward providing Australia with a conventionally armed and nuclear-powered submarine capability, while upholding the highest standards of non-proliferation. And I want to thank the sailors from all three of our navies who are working tirelessly to ensure that we succeed. Over the past year, we increased the number of officers and sailors from the Royal Australian Navy attending U.S. and British submarine nuclear reactor schools. And U.S. and Australian sailors, along with UK observers, recently conducted maintenance together on a U.S. submarine visiting Australia. This was just the first step toward ensuring that Australia has a sovereign, nuclear-powered submarine capability. We're also making progress towards having a rotational presence of U.S. submarines by as early as 2027. Both will help to enhance security and stability focuses on getting new advanced capabilities to our warfighters. We're working together to identify common requirements and to meet them with the most capable tech. And that's critical to building an even more capable combined force. And over this past year, we conducted several significant demonstrations and experiments across the ground, undersea, and along the electromagnetic spectrum. And taken together, all this progress will increase decision advantage for our warfighters. And we are excited to quickly field these advanced technologies across our forces. Our acquisition teams are driving integration throughout our industrial bases and our innovation ecosystems. This will maximize our combined ability to develop, produce, and sustain these capabilities together. You know, earlier this year, we held the first bilateral Aukus Innovation Challenge. It's focused on electronic warfare, targeting, and protection. The leading companies from all three countries offered solutions to these complex challenges. Our Defense Innovation Unit selected Distributed Spectrum, a vendor based in New York City. It is postured to provide critical capabilities which will strengthen Aukus. And that reminds us of the importance of working with industry and all that it has to offer. Under Aukus, we intend to do more of that. Our Aukus innovation leads are developing a robust 2-year agenda for further work with industry. Thanks to Aukus, our three militaries are operating together more closely and capably than ever before. So Richard and John, thanks for your leadership, and thanks for your commitment to security in the Indo-Pacific. As you both said, we got a lot done today, and I look forward to doing even more in the days ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Right, I'm going to ask six journalists now if they'd like to pose a question to us. And I'm going to start with Johnny Beale of the BBC.
Secretary Austin's comments about Lebanon just there. You did say, deliberately I think, Israel can choose a diplomatic path. Now, Israel, you have said, should be part of that ceasefire you want. Yet we've heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu today directing his own forces to continue the fight with full force. So are you worried that he is ignoring your appeals for a ceasefire? And also, is there a limit to US military support for Israel? We haven't seen any limit so far. You're still supplying them with arms. But are there red lines? For example, if Israel chose to carry out a ground invasion into Lebanon, is that a red line for you? And then I'd like to ask our Defense Secretary, are you worried about what Benjamin Netanyahu has said today? He seems to be ignoring those calls for a ceasefire which you back, and is directing his forces, as he says, to continue the fight with full force. Are you any nearer also to those, you put 700
a ceasefire, or the two parties agreed to a ceasefire, and allowed diplomacy to take place. And again, we have been in constant dialogue with our counterparts in Israel. As you probably know, I talk to my counterpart frequently, and of course, I encourage him to pursue diplomacy every step of the way. In terms of any limits that we would place on Israel, we've been committed from the very beginning to help Israel and provide the things that are necessary for them to be able to protect their sovereign territory, and that hasn't changed and won't change in the future.
Thank you. The calls of the United Nations at this time, this week, led by President Biden, by Prime Minister Starmer, and a number of other nations for this 21-day ceasefire, unprecedented calls together at the United Nations, offer a pause in the fighting, as Secretary Austin said, and the chance to see negotiations. There is a way that Israel can see thousands of displaced citizens return to their homes in northern Israel, and those Lebanese can return to their homes as well. And that's the American-led Hochstein plan. The Israelis have said they're prepared to accept that, and I urge Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Lebanese Hezbollah leaders to pay heed to the combined voices at the United Nations to do just that. 21 days, a ceasefire, where talks can start and the fighting can end, and the chance of a longer-term settlement may emerge. On the question of the British nationals in Lebanon, this is our first concern, their safety. It's the first duty of a government is to look after the interests of its nationals. Our advice on Lebanon has not changed in recent days. It's been the same for weeks. Don't go to Lebanon, and if you are in Lebanon, then leave. And there are at present commercial flights leaving Lebanon. But any sensible government must make preparations for future developments. So I left the Labour Party conference early this week on Tuesday morning. I chaired a meeting of COBRA officials that afternoon to ensure that if we see rapid developments in Lebanon, then Britain, with allies, is ready to respond. And in the last 24 hours, we've flown 700 UK military personnel to Cyprus. They stand ready to act should they be needed at short notice.
Firstly, Australia has
US partnership that we've seen today, will the US, has there been discussions about how the US could possibly help Australia in getting these citizens out safely?
Bridget, there's a bit of an echo, so I couldn't understand the question completely. Move your mic a little closer, maybe, and speak up a little bit.
Sure. I was just wondering if there's been any discussions about how the US can help Australia get their citizens in Lebanon out safely, given the partnership has been seen on display at here.
How we would help Australia leave Lebanon, is that the question?
Correct.
Australia is a valued ally, and certainly we don't want to engage in any hypotheticals at this point. As you've heard the Deputy Prime Minister say, he is doing things to continue to plan and put means in place to be able to offer options to the Australian leadership if it comes to it. We do the same thing, and as you heard Secretary Healy say, he is doing the same thing. And we are close allies. We will always endeavor to help each other when and if that time comes. But again, that hadn't presented itself yet. But Australia and the UK, I would hope that they would feel that they can always count on the United States.
Perhaps I might just respond and say there's not been any request, obviously, of the UK or the United States. I mean, right now we are talking about a hypothetical, but the most important message for people today and in Lebanon today is to leave. That's the most important step that people can take. But as Lloyd said, we, in our preparations for a range of scenarios, work really closely with both the US and the UK. There is a history of cooperation which goes back decades. We have seen scenarios in Lebanon previously over the last 2 decades, and they still remain fresh in our minds. But the most important step in relation to all of this as we speak is for Australians in Lebanon to leave today, right now.
Thank you. Hayley Brinsky, CNN.
Thank you so much. Secretary Austin, you've spoken with your Israeli counterpart multiple times. To the U.S. when it comes to this conflict with Hezbollah. And Secretary Healy, for you, can you speak about any detailed conversations between you and Secretary Austin regarding lifting the ban on Ukraine using Storm Shadow missiles to strike deeper inside of Russia? And is the UK prepared to move forward and allowing Ukraine to do this without the U.S. if the U.S. does not give approval?
Thanks, Haley. You heard me say a couple of seconds ago that a full-scale war between LH and Israel could be devastating for both parties, and it could lead to a larger conflict throughout the region. So that's not in the best interest of anyone. And the best way forward is to pursue a ceasefire that will enable diplomacy to take place. Again, I know that our diplomats continue to engage each other on this issue. I am confident that they'll continue to find a way to do just that, get to a point where we can see a ceasefire and still work towards a diplomatic solution. But we recognize that there's hard work to be done. We are committed to doing that work. And yes, I am optimistic that the right things will happen.
Hayley, we've been a government now in the UK for 10 weeks. In that time, we've stepped up the military aid that we've providing to Ukraine. We've sped up the deliveries of the aid that had previously been pledged. We've struck a new industrial treaty with
As the Daily Mail has reported recently, the Royal Navy hasn't had an attack submarine on operations for more than 2 months, and most of the astute class are alongside, undergoing repairs. This has necessitated a greater reliance on the UK's allies, in particular the United States. So when will Britain be able consistently to protect its bomber submarines which carry the UK's nuclear deterrent? And to Mr. Austin, how familiar are you, as US Secretary of Defence, with these many long-standing issues within the Royal Navy, and how comfortable are you given it's the US that is often required to plug capability gaps?
Well, Mark, you know I won't comment as Defence Secretary on anything operational, but I will say as Defence Secretary I will allow nothing that compromises the security of our UK nuclear deterrent. And I'll just say to you this, President Putin knows just how capable and world-class our submarines and our underwater systems are. And today, we as three nations have been discussing the way that our national forces can be strengthened by being developed and deployed in the future together through the Aukus partnership. So this is a partnership that reinforces our national securities, but also collaboratively reinforces wider national and international security and stability too.
Hey, Mark, I think the question was whether or not I'm confident in the UK's capability. Is that right? Yes. And listen, we have been trusted allies for a long time. We fought beside each other, bled with each other, faced difficult challenges with each other. And I was telling the ministers earlier today, the short 41 years that I spent in uniform, a good part of that, well over 5 years was in combat, on and off. There was never a place that I went where I didn't have a Brit or an Aussie that was in that formation. That's how closely we've been working together for a long time. Matter of fact, when I was a Land Forces commander in Iraq, my deputy was a Brit, a man by the name of Sir Richard Barron. You probably know about him or know of him. He rose to prominence in the UK military. But I have confidence in their warfighting capability, their strategic outlook, and their willingness to work alongside us on tough issues, and the same level of confidence with the Australian military. So the short answer is yes. That answer is based upon many years of experience of working with our allies.
Thank you. Can I turn to Latika Borg, please, the Nike?
Secretary Austin, a revered elder of Mr. Miles's party, former Prime Minister Paul Keating, has said that AUKUS is about the United States turning Australia into suckers and a military outpost. What would you say to critics like Mr. Keating? And are you concerned about the tone of the debate in Australia around AUKUS and that leading to a slippage in public support for the program? And Secretary Healy, I didn't quite understand your answer on Storm Shadow, yes or no? Are you willing to go it alone? And Secretary Austin, would you be okay with that scenario if the British decided to go it alone?
So, regarding your first question, AUKUS, Pillar 1 of AUKUS will provide a generational capability to Australia that will provide benefits for many, many years to come. It is well worth the investment. It is well worth the effort that we put into it. And we take this very seriously. As you heard Secretary Healy say earlier, we haven't shared this with any other country in 60 years. So this is not a good idea that we woke up one day and said, hey, let's do this. We understood the level of complexity, the commitment, the hard work that would go into this, and the shared responsibilities that would come along with this. And what I've seen throughout in working with our trusted allies here is just that, tremendous commitment. I've seen incredible performance by their sailors, by the Australian sailors, and Secretary Healy, I know would agree with me as we have trained their sailors in our schools recently. Their performance has been quite impressive. This effort extends over several years. And because of that, we know that we need to make sure that we hit every benchmark, every objective over that period of time that we've outlined. And to date, the third year of our efforts on Aukus, I can say that we have. And we continue to press forward to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to ensure that this capability comes to life. And it's already coming to life. You look at what's happening in the schools, what we're doing in maintenance, we're investing in submarine industrial bases. So we are creating capability, and we are committed to making sure that Australia has what it needs to have going forward, and it will make its own sovereign decisions about what it will do in the future. We fully expect that. But thanks.
Let me add to that. I said earlier that we've just completed the first course. Our Royal Navy training 250 Australians in nuclear engineering. I'm proud to say also we've got Australian submariners now.